One specific thing that I look for is how do they pivot when things get tough?
Yes.
Whether that's emotionally, mentally, physically. Like as a leader, you're always going to come across just random things that happen that you don't plan for. And how do those people pivot with people calling in or anything like that? Do they stay focused on the issue or they go to solution? How do they perform in that setting?
Get ready, drop the confetti. Drop the confetti.
Welcome to Remarkable Minds, hosted by Daniel Stark Leaders. Here we unbox insights for professional growth. My name is Claudia Yanez. I do marketing and sales here at Daniel Stark. And today joining us is Stephanie, who is our Director of Operations, and then Jacob, our Associate Director of Operations.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
We have a really great topic. I think a lot of people are going to be super interested in this one because everyone's always trying to figure out how to best brand themselves, how to really put themselves in a position to get promoted. So before we get into that, just share a little bit about how long you've been here at the firm and just kind of walk us through that leadership journey. Jacob, let's start with you.
So I've been here a little over or about 7.5 years so far. And that journey for me was sometimes pretty challenging because this was my first formal professional position. And so when I came on, I had a great leader coming up, Sarah, and she kind of helped show me the path that I needed to be on and really recognize kind of the strengths that I had. And so, yeah, it's been fun so far. It has been quite challenging, but it's definitely been worth it.
Yeah, and you started in one of our entry-level departments, like answering phones, setting up cases. You know, we call that our legal support team. I believe that's where you started, correct?
Yes, back then it was called Resource, but yeah, now it's transitioned into legal support team and doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, and now you oversee it.
Yes, I do oversee it.
Awesome, along with a lot of other hats that you wear.
3 or 4 different other departments, but
Yes.
yeah, mainly legal support team.
Awesome. And how big is your team now?
We're about 17 to 18 people
Oh,
right
wow.
now.
Yeah, so it's gotten pretty
It
big.
has.
in
When
the
I started, it was
past
about 6, so it's just
double
grown
in
and grown.
size. Yeah, awesome. What about you, Steph?
Yeah, I've been here for a little over 10 years.
Yeah, congratulations on the Big Ten.
Thank you so much. So 10 years, and I've been in a lot of positions, a lot of departments. Started my leadership journey quite a while ago. Similar, had a great leader who recognized some things in me and poured that talent into me, and kind of grew from there.
Yes. And then for anyone listening on this, in our conversation, we're not just going to talk about how to get promoted into a specific leadership position, but just how to get promoted in general, maybe some additional responsibility, absolutely financial, and kind of the things that you can do to really set yourself up for success. So kind of going back to those stories, very similar journey, right? 11 years. Also started in a very entry-level position and also had a leader that just saw a lot of great strengths. And then I remember having a conversation about what do you want in your life? What do you want your journey to look like? And that was a pretty thought-provoking conversation to have at such an entry-level position. I was like, I didn't know I could have this kind of conversation. And I think that really set the tone on what Daniel Stark and what this position can be for me, because this, if I'm being really honest, was just a what is it called when a stepping stone is that a stepping stone to something else. I wanted to go to law school, and I was only I graduated A&M. I was going to be here for a couple of years, and I was going to leave. And I remember through those conversations, and then having conversations even with family and friends, that's not the norm. To have leaders invested in you and want to see you succeed. And then the transparency that we had in the firm in regards to where we're going and be part of that really just made it difficult to leave, to the point where I was like, okay, I was at a fork in my path. And I was like, I think I'm going to stay and then kind of see where this takes me. And it's been like you said, a challenging and amazing journey. Steph, did you know early on that you wanted to become a leader, or what was some of those things?
No,
Yeah,
I
tell
never
me.
saw that for myself. Similar to you, I thought I was going to be here for a couple years before I went on to the next big step, which wasn't law school for me.
She was like, no, thank you.
No, but I did. I initially thought, okay, yes, I'll start here. This will be my foot in the door in just a professional setting. But just knowing that someone believed in me and they could lay out a path if I wanted it, and that's what really motivated me. I was like, yes, I can do this, and I do want this, because you make an impact on other people's lives. That's very rewarding.
Absolutely. Wonderful. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, same. I was fresh out of college, my first job, and never thought I would be here for this long. It was just like, I'll get some experience and then move on to something else. And honestly, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So staying here just made that a little bit easier for me, because saw the path, I saw what the future could be, and it really just made me want to stay.
Absolutely. When do you remember like having that moment that you decided, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start working on this. And then was there a plan that was ever laid out for you? And what did that look like?
I think mine was coming into the team lead position. It was just kind of, it just kind of stayed stagnant for a while for me. And so I got into the position and I just kind of coasted through it. And then it wasn't until I like really came across my first challenge where I was like, okay, now we're getting real, and kind of started seeing the obstacles that were there. And I was like, man, that's something that I want in my life, is some obstacles. I don't want to coast anymore, because I felt that, I experienced it, and it was fun, but it wasn't challenging or rewarding at all. And so I think you were actually the one that kind of gave me my first challenge with an old coworker, and really knowing how to brand myself and putting Daniel Stark first before a lot of other things. And it was really a good turning point for me.
I think what made me realize, like, oh, this could be a career path for me, genuinely, like, this is where I want to be and where I want to continue to grow and develop. I had made a connection with a team member, and I had made an impact on them, and I felt that reward. And I being a leader, there's so much to it, but the bigger picture is really connecting with people and getting to know them.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, I was like, I love this. I love being on this person's journey with them.
Absolutely.
So that's what solidified it for me. I was like, this is a place I can grow as a leader, and I can continue to help people and work with them in a different way. And this is what I want.
Yeah. And I can 100% relate to that, because very similarly, I have felt the same way in my journey, and like in high school or in college, I was always involved in some sort of student organization. So it almost seemed to me that I would think that I would take some sort of leadership role wherever I went, but never to this degree, because when I came on, and, most times and very traditionally, people will ask the most tenured person who's showed a lot of mastery to move into some type of leadership position. But that wasn't my case. Like, I was not the most tenured person. And actually, I was one of the most newer members. I probably was here for a year or so when I was asked, versus people who've been here for many years. And I remember that was a really hard conversation when I had that with my, at the time, our COO. And I was very nervous about how this was going to be perceived among my team members, because I was not the most tenured. And I remember asking, what does this look like? What is being a team lead or a leader look like? And, at the time, he gave the response that he'd given most leaders who go through that. It's about taking care of your team and demanding high performance. And I was like, I can do that. Like, I can absolutely do that. Yeah. And the demanding high performance portion was going to be like, okay, like how I'm a natural nurturer, I'm a teacher, I'm an organizer, like all these different skills that I've learned throughout high school and college. And like, yes. And then the accountability portion was going to be new for me. Like, how do you demand, how do you influence and motivate and encourage and really see potential in people and bring them to that level? That has always been the journey, and a really fun and rewarding one. And that is what, seeing that connection and having those rewarding moments when you do see them and how it impacted their day-to-day and their work life, and then at home too. It was just, man, like to be part of that. That's a really great feeling. So talk about a little bit about now. So now you're in a role where you're now seeing the potential in your team members, and maybe it's in your department or maybe it's across departments. What are the characteristics that immediately make you that make you just like, hell yeah, like that person?
Oh, they step up, they take ownership, they're hungry, they're good at what they do, the role that they currently have, and they just have a way with people where they can talk to them and communicate. To some degree, people may gravitate toward them a little bit as well. Those are the things that catch my eye.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, all those things. And then one specific thing that I look for is how do they pivot when things get tough?
Yes.
Whether that's emotionally, mentally, physically. Like as a leader, you're always going to come across just random things that happen that you don't plan for. And how do those people pivot with people calling in or anything like that? Do they stay focused on the issue or they go to solution? Like how do they perform in that setting?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things now is we have this open concept flooring at the office. And so where I sit, I can really hear and see a lot that's happening on the floor, and very similar to you. And I'm looking for resiliency. I'm looking for people who can get unstuck. I'm looking for people who don't need a leader to tell them what to do. They just know how to serve. And I've kind of very similar, like they're not looking to obey, they're looking to serve their team.
Right.
And it's so noticeable because they are hungry. They are like, they have really great energy. People do gravitate to them because there's something about and we'll talk about personal branding, something about their brand that just really like people like respect that and admire that. And they use that towards the betterment of the team. And so I get to hear and I get to see when someone is stuck and there isn't a leader present, there's a person that's normally stepping up and let me help you. I got that. Let me show you what's worked for me. I'm picking up on all these different conversations. I was like, oh, wow, they're already a leader. And anybody can, right? Anybody can be a leader without having the title, but those are the things that we're seeing, that potential. So resiliency goes a long way. People who like, okay, I don't get it right all the time. And when I don't, this is how I'm going to learn. We have a saying, fail fast. Like I'm going to take failure, I'm going to learn from it, I'm going to move on. So that's a really important one. So let's kind of move to how we can help people who are looking for promotion in their careers. And so we talked about what we kind of see in those, and anybody in our kind of in our world. And obviously we don't go to them and tell them like, I think you deserve a promotion. Right. I think we are structured in a sense that either it's at your anniversary, right? There's a promotion, financial at least, at that point. And if your roles change, right? So you've taken on more than what you had originally. Now, what's kind of the structured way that people normally get to that point of having a financial increase? Let's start there. It's like the basic one for me.
For me in my department, what I always tell them is just ask. I think we come across a lot of people, especially for me, younger people in our company that are just afraid. This is their first professional job. And they're like, I don't know if I should ask for a raise or are they just going to give it to me? So one thing I recommend is just asking for it. Put something on the calendar. Let's talk about it. It's likely going to be somewhat uncomfortable for them being their first time, but really establishing that trust. And of course you're doing that, over the year, with your different meetings, but really helping them feel comfortable at that time and show them how to get what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think setting those expectations early on when they're first hire always goes a long way. Like we'll do an annual evaluation every year, I think is what I say, just so that, because there are times that there may not be a raise depending on performance. And typically, if we're at that point that they're not eligible to get a raise because the performance are, for the most part, not part of the team, since we look at that on a quarterly basis and even monthly basis. But they have an annual evaluation. You tell them, let's go ahead and just get that on the books now. It's on your anniversary. what's some of the groundwork that they can start doing to prepare for that meeting and that conversation? Because we don't always tell them, well, I would like a raise. I mean, there's a little bit of groundwork that goes into that to help that conversation. What does that look like for you?
Sure. Honestly, it is those quarterly conversations that we're having with the team because they are getting consistent feedback from whoever their direct leaders are monthly and quarterly. So they should know where their performance stands. And I will say one of the most effective compensation or annual review that I've had with a team member, they actually put together a PowerPoint of all their strengths and their weaknesses and where they wanted to go and what they thought they brought to the table and what they thought they would continue to bring to the table. And it was very effective.
Yeah, so it worked for them.
It sure did.
Yeah. I've never had someone in my tenure here show me a PowerPoint, and I would definitely applaud the effort for sure. I love that. Love to hear that. But yes, like you said, those quarterly conversations, and then again, not for people to be afraid of feedback. Feedback is good. It's what did you do with that feedback?
Right.
Did you go and implement it? How did it impact, your day-to-day, your work, your performance, and being able to see that progress over time goes a very long way. And so in addition to that, to me, I want to see longevity. I want to know that you are committed here and that I can continue to invest in you because this is a place you want to grow and you want to commit to. And when I see that they are like, this is where they want to be, it encourages me to really pour into them, especially if I see them like I worked on, some of the feedback I've gotten has been about my communication skills. This is what I've done so far. This is what I've learned. These are some of the books that I've read. These are the opportunities that I'm taking to grow and kind of flex that skill. I love seeing that. It's really great in boys. The other conversation that we tend to have is when someone does go in there and maybe they have a number in mind. A lot of times they come in and they don't really give you a number. But they have a number in mind, but they don't want to show their hand, and that's fair. Absolutely okay. And in those instances, like transparency to me, it's like key. Just be very transparent. And the 3 departments that I oversee, I'm very transparent in what a PACE plan can look like and what the cap is. Like, this is where you'll be capped. And if you're thinking about wanting something a little bit more than that, then the other alternative roads would either be leadership or moving into another department. And I hate that because I don't want to lose them, but I want them to be positioned in the best, possible manner that will impact them positively in their personal lives as well. And I understand that. And so when we get to that conversation, it was like, well, this is not really what I'm hoping for. I really want to be in this area. Then we'll talk about, okay, what does performance need to look like? Of course, always culture, right? Culture is a given. That's permission to stay on the team, permission to play. You got to be high on culture. And then we make a plan like, okay, if it's not our department, then here are some other departments that could be available. We know what empty seats look like, what they're looking to hire for. And then, of course, I will communicate with one of the department heads. Hey, I have someone who's really great. They want to move into this department. What does that plan look like for them? What's a time frame look like for them so that I can communicate? But most of the time, you can keep those people on your team, high culture, great performance, if you just have some transparency and that communication so that they know. And the biggest one is commit and actually follow through with the plan.
Yes.
Right? It's really key. What have you seen gone wrong when people come and ask for either a raise or a promotion? How have you seen those conversations go really bad?
Sure. There's a few ways that this can go poorly, one of which is when a team member feels entitled to a certain number or level of compensation that doesn't really match their performance or the skills that they have yet. So that can result in
and the way that they handle it, or maybe they come into that conversation.
Yes.
I want to pause there real quick before you move on to the other ones, because what I have seen at some point, for the most part, when they do come in, maybe hot, very entitled, I normally get the sense of like, you've been hurt, you're frustrated, there's some resentment going on, and hopefully, there's been some sort of trail in regards to what's been going on. Maybe I understand a little bit because sometimes I'm not the one having the quarterly conversation. Maybe it's somebody else, and I'll go back and see. there's somewhere along the way we've lost trust with this person, and I try to go first and let's see what this is about. Let's see how we can get back on track, and then let's just have a really honest conversation where we're at. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so in like the entitlement usually leads, if it goes bad, it leads to a conversation that's more similar to an ultimatum. And whenever they give that, like you say, lost trust, you need to really figure out what their expectations are and why they think that this is okay, whether that's they're new and they just think that they're playing hardball when in reality it's coming across as, like you said, entitlement, and they really just need to understand how this conversation needs to go. And so really going back and digging into kind of what they've experienced before, whether it's another job, what someone's told them, maybe someone else has told them, how much they make and they don't understand the backstory behind that, can all lead to a really bad conversation.
Mm-hmm. Having those ultimatums, and especially as a leader, giving into them is just sets real bad precedents. And for most, if you are in a manager position, supervisor position, leader position, and you accept of those, it's mostly because you don't have a bench and you're afraid of losing this person. Maybe there's a morale, maybe there's a performance. And I challenge them to plan. Always be prepared so that we don't give in to those. A lot of it could be just immaturity from the team member. They don't know how to have those conversations. So it comes across, like you said, as an ultimatum. Well,
Right.
This is really what I want, or I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave. When someone has a conversation like that, the first thing that's always comes to mind is like, you're already one step out the door.
Yeah.
Like, this is just buying you time. And that does not always play well for either party, for the employer or the team member. And getting to the root of what the actual issue is always key. Like you said, let's figure out what the actual problem is and see if we can come back from that and maybe build some trust if trust was lost. Or maybe let me coach you here. Like, I know this is what you really want, and I'm going to do my best to look at factual. Like, let's look at your culture. Let's look at your performance. Let's see how that's been. If that's normally been great, and this is just kind of really out of character, let me just kind of coach you so that you don't come into a conversation. And that will benefit you not just now in any future conversations you have with us, but any future conversations you have with any employer. So let's go into like now. Let's go back to who you are, what you've learned along the way. You're going to come in. Let's say you got to go into your boss, your leader's office in a couple of weeks. How are you going to best prepare for that conversation?
Yeah, I'm gonna reflect on the growth that I've done in the areas that I've been asked to grow in. I'm gonna reflect on the projects I've contributed to and the impact that project has had on the team, whether it's saving labor hours or an efficiency gain in X area, however the impact is. And I'm going to come with all of that information and pretty much sell myself and my worth. Like, this is what I'm worth. This is what I believe my value is. And just have that door open to a conversation.
Absolutely. Very similarly, yes, like always, laying down that groundwork of checking and reflecting on your growth and the impact that you have had. I think there is I can't remember what particular book it is, but I've heard Danny say this all the time. Leaders have to make 8 times more than what you pay them. So you have to bring in that value. And it's kind of hard to determine what that value is and quantify it. But yes, going back and looking at a scorecard, we have our annual scorecards that tells us what our outcomes is. How is our success going to be measured? Of course, you have culture. And then the performance-wise, so being able to do exactly what you're talking about. And the other is I always come in with an expectation, like a range of where I would like to be. And that's going to be based off of what I believe is fair market value. And there are a couple of sites that you can look at. And our People and Experience department does that for us too. And so for every position that's open in the firm, they've already done the research on what fair market value is per the location and the role that we do. And so that's always nice and helpful. And if I can't get there, and if I can't get here, today, how can I get here? Can you please lay out a plan? Because I'm always willing to earn my spot on the team. I'm always willing to work hard. and I just want to know, I want to, more than anything, I want to know that there's a path, and I want to know that my employer or my leader has their best interest in me and want to see me grow and go down this path, and that they're going to support and advocate for me every step of the way, and be very transparent if there are going to be challenges in getting to that place, whether it is a dollar range or maybe it's a growth in my responsibilities in my role. And a lot of that can get tied back to your, what we call core competencies. Like, in order to oversee this role that you want to be in, these are the core competencies that you either have to show some mastery in, and what does that look like? So there's growth opportunity and maybe a plan there for that side of things.
Yeah.
What about you, Jacob?
Similar to Firth, but I think at this level it's going to be easier for us compared to a normal team member to kind of take some of the emotion out of it. I think most team members are going to feel like it's like their identity, that if we tell them no, like, oh, it's me, I'm the problem, when in reality it could be budget or plenty of other things that can happen to where they don't get the number that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this level, I can say, like, I can reflect, I can look back on really just like black and white. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. This is what I could have done better, and really go into that meeting really with an open mind of where I want to be, but also know the facts of what I did this year and why I may or may not get the number that I want.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So kind of going back to, who says this? Brene Brown. Unclear is unkind.
Yeah, clear is kind.
Yeah.
And clear is kind. Always that transparency and that communication and those conversations at the very front end and towards every quarterly conversation and annuals will really help set up that person and the supervisor for long-term success if we're having those conversations. Of course, documentation is key. After we document what we talked about, if there was a plan in place, by when. So accountability, who, what, when. Yeah. Who, what, and when. Yeah, exactly. Who, what, and when, to make sure that we are following through with what we said we're going to do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would really help our listeners to do to advance themselves in their careers. And the only other thing I can think about is just branding, how you brand yourself. And so many people think that you're already doing this. So whether you think about it at the forefront, there's already something that people perceive you as. Now, is it what you want it to be? Is it aligned with what you actually want that to be? Does it align with your personal values? And I always tell people, start there. What do you want people to take away from every encounter that they have with you? Whether it's in person or in writing, what does that look like? And is that what you're saying? And if it's not, or if you don't know, go get feedback on that. And I think that's always something really great that people can work on with their team lead, or even with other mentors that they maybe trust, or maybe some peers to give them some feedback. Mm-hmm. What about you?
No, perception is very important. How people perceive you and how they feel in your presence. That's a big deal.
Yeah. The other than branding that I can also think about is, and again, this is branding internally within the scope of, what you do within the firm. I've seen people go from just how they talk and walk with confidence, or I know that they're working on that, and you can see how hard they're working on that. Maybe they're taking opportunities to grow those skills, and also just their visibility. It's hard for me to see, other than if you're an extremely high performer, and you are also really just great at culture. There are some people who really do this well, even when they're remote. And that's a really big one, because we don't see you. And our main communication is maybe via Teams, but I can tell your presence is missing in a chat room or in certain correspondence. And so I do think that there is some disadvantage to people who do work remote, or maybe not visible on the day-to-day presence if most of the office is in person. What are some of those things that those people can do, like for remote or satellite team members?
They still work on a presence within their team and the larger department that they're in. I know they have to work harder, and you're right, it is a disadvantage because they have to make up that distance to be truly present and available, and the team thinks of them instead of another leader whenever they need something or they have a question. So yes, it's a little bit harder, but they can still do it. They can still make a presence, and a lot of it has to do with their energy and their charisma and what they have to offer personality wise. I know personality that's not something that's easy to train, but it can definitely make or break a remote leader.
Absolutely, and with just with confidence and you don't have to be this over bubbly person. And I know that's not what you're saying. But even when, like, if you're online for Zoom or Teams video calls, that you're on time, that you look ready to go, that you are engaged, that you are focused, and that you're having meaningful contribution to the conversation. I think those are just some key things that you can do to really help your visibility and your presence in a particular room, is to show that effort.
Yeah.
Anything that you can think of?
Turn your camera on.
Yes.
I see it. I don't see it a lot, but I know some remote people, like, they just get in the zone of, they're by themselves, or they get comfortable with that. Then whenever they get the opportunity to show their presence, they don't take action on it. They leave their camera off. They're waiting for someone to say, like, hey, I need you to do this, when like you said, they need to work on their presence, be active about it, and really want it, because they do have to work harder to get it.
And the people who want it are going to make those types of decisions, those small little decisions where they're very intentional, versus those that, look, I'm here, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my thing, I'm just going to, work, I'm going to be on this meeting, I'm going to get off, and I'm going to do my work. Okay, that's fine. Like, we want people, obviously, who are good at their job and they're great culture, and they just... But you're not going to stand out among those people that are making the effort and the intention. So long as you know that you're making that decision, that is, you're intentionally making that decision about who you are and about your brand. Okay. Yeah. And that's okay if that's what you want. But for those who want to get ahead, want some presence, want to start laying the groundwork day 60, 120 going into their year evaluations. Those are, again, whether you're remote or you're online, your energy that you bring to how you look, to how you speak, and into your work product, into making sure you are exhibiting those core values are going to set you up for success, and are going to set you up to just really get noticed by your leaders and even other leaders. Yeah. And it's one of my favorite things, even with people that are not on my team, but I just see, man, I can see other team members that are not mine. I just have, like, hard eyes, and I go make it a point to go talk to whoever their leader is. Like, I just had an interaction with one of your girls or one of the guys on your team. I just remark about them, and I want them to know that they've done something so well that they're not on my team, but I've noticed them, and why I think that's why that particular encounter was important to me or anything. Just want to share that, and if you are a leader, encouraging you to do that and to remark about those people is really helpful, because it does help make those small, like, perception. So, like, they're building brand. So absolutely. Right. Anything else that we can add, and any insights on how to get promoted?
I think you said, reflecting on my own time, the thing you said at the end of getting yourself out there, I think is a huge thing. We have a whole bunch of volunteer opportunities here at Daniel Stark, and that's something that I did early on. I was involved in all kinds of stuff, trying to, I mean, at the time it was just having fun, but looking back, it was like, oh, okay, I placed myself with so many other people in so many different departments, and built a relationship with those people while I was at those events, and it really helped.
Absolutely. Build connection.
Get your brand out there.
Absolutely. Don't be siloed.
Right.
It's really helpful if you can go build some connection. And that also, to me, shows commitment. It shows that you want to be here. It's that you're going out of your way and you're making an effort to really make this place kind of home, and just build a community here. And that shows, like, okay, this person wants to be here. So that's really helpful. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree with that. All right. So if that conversation doesn't go well, maybe it doesn't go well in the sense that your expectations were met, be clear, speak up, and have, as hard as it is to have those conversations, I think communicating with your team lead, your employer, and saying what those expectations that you did have, maybe where they came from, if maybe you did your own fair market value assessment, bring that to the table, talk about it, say, and maybe just kind of reassure, like, this is where you want to be. This is how you want to grow. This is how you want to be challenged. And this is where you want to be in your salary range. Work with them to get you there. If you truly and honestly feel that employer does not have your best interest, or is just not going, it's going to be a very long time, or there's just no opportunity there, then you got to make a tough conversation. Then you're going to have to make a tough decision, and possibly have a tough conversation afterwards. But at least you'll know. More than anything, you'll know what you need to do. You'll know that you're at a point where you have to make a decision. Well, I think that's all the time that we have to unbox some of these insights. Thank you all so much for joining us. And if you have any other topics that you would like for us to kind of discuss, or suggestions to this particular conversation, please send those to podcast@danielstarklaw.com. Until next time, stay remarkable.
Get ready, drop the confetti.
Nice.